What's happening, everybody? MG here, MGCovers, bringing you a brand new sports handicapping video. Title of this video: what are the correct number of games to use when building stat models? Super excited to bring this video. Going to be educational for those of you looking to build models and also learn more about sports handicapping. If you're watching this video for the first time, greatly appreciate you subscribing to the channel. There's a lot of people that generally will watch the channel but don't subscribe, so take just a second right now, hit the subscribe button. And at the end of this video, if it brings you value, we'd also greatly appreciate you liking this video and even maybe sharing it on social media as well. If you want to follow me on social media, it's MGCovers, cover spelled with a Z. Give out a ton of content. We gave out Minnesota WNBA free play last night at +6. They cash and won easily with that one. So you get a lot of value and content simply by following me on social media. There's a link to follow me in the description box of this video if you want to make it easy. All right, so let's start with this question. It's going to be a relatively short video, but very educational. What are the correct number of games to use when modeling? The answer to that question is there are no correct amount of games to use. And let me premise this by saying the most important part of modeling that trumps everything that you're trying to accomplish is the model profitable long term, not short term, not 1 day, 2 days, or a week. Is it profitable in the case of modeling for a specific sport? Is it profitable for the duration of the season? So whatever games or sample of games that you use, number of games you use, is somewhat irrelevant because the main premise of a model is to be profitable. Now, that being said, what I'm going to do in this video is show you a very fascinating experiment I kind of did with my partner who we share information with regards to models. And I'm also going to give you some thoughts on sample size to use for other sports and also some sample sizes that have worked for me in the past with modeling. So pardon this chicken scratch you see here. That's a Southern term for handwriting. So this was my stat model partner created this new model for baseball. I tested it using a very small sample size. I will tell you the sample size I used. It was 8 game sample size. And you could see there it goes 20 and 19. So it wasn't like it was terrible, but it was 20 and 19 up basically a unit and a half. I don't have the units posted, so you have to take my word for that. So only a unit and a half, 20 and 19. Now, what my partner did was he ran it and used a significantly bigger sample size, and I don't have the total, so we'll go ahead. We'll walk through this. So that's one. So if you see a minus, that was a loss, and this was the money line over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He had 14 wins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 losses. So what's super fascinating, I use the same exact stats, but using a small sample size of 8 games. I go 20 and 19 up 1.5 units. He uses a much bigger sample size, same exact model, goes 14 and 6, and he was up, I believe, 7.85 units. A significant difference using a bigger sample size. Now, this is Major League Baseball, so I want to talk briefly about why I believe that's the case to use. I don't want to say the exact amount of games that we're using because obviously we're using his model with that sample size now. But I will say this about Major League Baseball. The reason I think a bigger sample size is better for Major League Baseball, if you have a team, for example, I was using 8 games. Let's say an average team plays 2 really bad teams back-to-back in a series. Say they play bad team A, 4-game series. They play bad team B in a 3-game series. So 7 of their 8 games that I'm using are against bad teams, so that's going to skew the average. So for baseball, I'm almost believing that a bigger sample size might be better. Now, in the past, I have generally used for baseball anywhere from 8 to 10 games and was successful doing that. So another big takeaway from this video, there are no correct number of games to use for any sport. Again, what is the premise of modeling? Is it profitable long term? So whatever you come up with, and I think it's very important to be open-minded, because if you have this preconceived notion that, Basketball, you got to use a small sample size. Football, you got to use a large sample size, et cetera, et cetera. There are no rules. The only rule or only premise that you need to worry about is it profitable long term. So be open-minded to experiment some different ideas. Now, that being said, let me talk about some different things that you can do with regards to modeling. Now, for the most part, the reason I like personally to use a smaller sample size for all sports is that you already factor form. So, for example, basketball, if you only use 5-game sample for basketball, that means if that team is, say, 3-2 and they're in really good form, then you don't have to factor form. It's basically factored into the model. Whereas if you use a bigger sample size, they might be good stat-wise, but say the last 5, let's say you're using a 15-game sample for whatever sport, right? Say you're using a 15-game sample for basketball. Well, the 15-game sample might show that team is better than the team that they're playing, but maybe they've played poorly in the last 5 games. Does that make sense? And in modeling, as you know, and I've talked about this a lot on this channel, the best indication of future performance is most recent performance. Again, I'm not saying it's right, but that's generally my philosophy and mindset. And that's majority of models I build that way. But again, I'm not saying it's the only way to build models. So therefore, let me give you some other examples. Now, this is very fascinating. My mentor in this business, who I learned a lot from by reading his books, Bob McCune, check out what he did for basketball. He took whatever stat he was using, he took a 15-game sample, a 10-game sample, and a 5-game sample. So he had 3 different sample sizes, and then he combined those and divided by 3. So he took an average of the last 15 games, 10 games, and 5 games and used that, which is very interesting. And it actually worked for him. Now, let me give you another concept you can do with regards to sample size, and this is one that I'm going to experiment with for NFL. And I've always told you guys not to use year-to-date stats. However, let's say you use a year-to-date stat combined with last 3 games for NFL. So if a team is 6-3, you're going to use their year-to-date stats for 9 games, and you're also going to use stats from the last 3 games, combine those and divide by 2. The reason I think that could potentially work is the fact that, let's say a team that's good, say they're 6-3, but maybe those last 3 games they didn't perform as well. Maybe they had injuries, et cetera, et cetera. And more times than not, teams are going to do what? We talked about that in the last video. They're going to regress, right? So they're going to probably regress to what they actually are. So a good team playing bad at some point, statistically speaking, should regress back to being a good team. Or you might have a bad team that played well a few games, got some lucky breaks, maybe a punt return for a touchdown, a couple interceptions, or the other team just crashed and burned. So those stats might be skewed. That's why maybe using a year-to-date plus the last 3-game average could potentially work. So again, just a sort of review for baseball. Again, I'm not saying that you have to use a large sample size for baseball. I'm just saying being open-minded to realizing that what you're currently doing may or may not be the best way to do it. Now, when you're building any type of model, the only way you can do this is to back test. What I'm saying is if we had 20 handicappers on this video, you would probably get different opinions from all of those handicappers that model about what's the correct sample size. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I just want to introduce you to different ways to do it. So you can use basically a large sample size. So for example, baseball or basketball, maybe like 15 games, 10 games, 15 games, somewhere in there. You could also use a year-to-date average plus a current form average. So if you're doing one for baseball, for example, maybe you do a 2-week average for baseball and a 1-week average, and then combine those. And then finally, the last way to think about modeling is to use a year-to-date average with a current form average. Hope that helped. If you want access to my actual power rankings for all sports, we currently have WNBA, soccer, and baseball right now. $50 a month. You also get access to all my videos. Coaching videos on the site if you want access to everything I just mentioned. In addition, all my plays, $100 a month, and the best value if you join for an entire year, you save about $600. Instead of paying $100 a month, you pay $500 one time. Link to join in the description box. Hope this video helped. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.